Hello and welcome to CS264 Software Design. This is Lecture 8 and this is Lesson 2. In this lesson we're going to look at events and C#. So when we talk about events, we're interested in event declaration, event raising, event handling, all these mechanisms, and we're particularly interested in seeing how we do all of this with the C# programming language. So events then enable a class or an object to notify other classes or objects when something of interest occurs. The class that sends or raises the event is called the publisher, and the classes that receive or handle the event are called subscribers. Typically, event handling mechanisms in software use this publisher-subscriber model. That's a design pattern. Microsoft says, however, that events in .NET are based on the delegate model, which follows the observer design pattern. So this model enables a subscriber to register with and receive notifications from a provider. Okay, so we're noting something here. There are some subtle differences between this publisher-subscriber, that pub-sub model, and the observer design pattern. With the observer design pattern, the observers are aware of the subject, and the subject maintains this record of the observers. But with the publisher-subscriber design pattern, publishers and subscribers don't need to know about each other. They communicate with the help of message queues or using a broker. Okay, so there's a really excellent and funny article here about the topic on Hacker Moon. It's definitely worth reading. And it tells you about the differences between pub, sub, and observer design patterns. You know, the author was at an interview and was asked about the difference between pub, sub, and observer, and said no, they're the same. And in a coding interview, and of course they're not the same. But anyway, it's worth reading. It's kind of funny. But for our purposes, anyway, the class that raises the event is called the publisher, and the class who receives the event is called the subscriber. There can be multiple subscribers to a single event. Typically, a publisher raises an event when some action occurred, and then subscribers that are interested in receiving a notification when the action occurred have to register with an event, and they provide a way to handle it. So a publisher then is some object, essentially, that contains the definition of the event and the delegate. And remember delegate, we saw them last time. The event-delegate association is also defined in this object. And a publisher class object invokes the event and it's notified to other objects. The subscriber is also an object, and that accepts the event and provides an event handler. The delegate in the publisher class invokes the method from the subscriber class. So you can see how it all probably pulls together if you think about the fact that we dealt with delegates last time. So events then in .NET, and because it works with Visual Basic and F# as well, they provide a really excellent overview of event properties. I'm going to summarize them here. You can find the original documentation at this link, and you can click through on the link and you'll find it yourself. Okay, so events have the following properties. The publisher determines when an event is raised. Subscribers determine what action is taken in response to the event. An event can have multiple subscribers. A subscriber can handle multiple events from multiple publishers. And if you think about that, think about delegates while you're thinking about this, you can see how that might work. Events that have no subscribers are never raised, and events are typically used to signal user actions such as button clicks, menu selections, and UIs and all that kind of stuff. And when an event has multiple subscribers, the event handlers are invoked synchronously when the event is raised. And it's possible to invoke events asynchronously as well. You can have a look at Microsoft documentation on using synchronous and asynchronous methods. In the .NET class library, events are based on the event handler delegate and the event args base class. So look at the delegate. So events in .NET, as it says, are based on the delegate model, and we talked about this we talked about them in the last lesson. So a delegate is a type that holds a reference to a method. So a delegate is declared with a signature that shows the return type and the parameters for the methods it references, and it can hold references only to methods that match its signature. So a delegate then is equivalent to a type-safe function pointer or a callback. So, and more importantly, a delegate declaration is sufficient to define a delegate class. So to define an event then, you have to use a C# event keyword in the signature of your event class and specify the type of delegate for the event. And then to erase an event, you add a method that's marked as protected and virtual, and Microsoft recommend that you name the method on event name, for example. So let's say, for example, on data received for a data received event. And the method should take a single parameter that specifies the event data object, and it's an object of the type event args, or some derived type from that. So you provide this method to enable derived classes to override the logic for raising the event. So a derived class should always call the onEventName method, of the base class to ensure that the registered delegates receive the event. And that's if you extend it in some way. Practically, this means that for an event to be declared, you have two steps: declare a delegate and declare a variable of the delegate with the event keyword. So I have an example for you here. We have a single delegate called notify and the declared event time to notify. And that time to notify has a delegate type notify. Again, using the event keyword in the publisher class. So that's the publisher. The notify delegate specifies the signature of the time to notify event handler. We saw that previously. And that means that the event handling method in the subscriber class must have the same delegate signature. So, okay, here we go. So declare an event in the publisher class. Public delegate void notify. That's the delegate. Public class publisher is the publisher. And we're going to event, public event notify, time to notify. Okay, so that's it, really. Now we see how to erase the event. Okay, we need to update the example here by implementing a method that carries out some action and raises an event when it's completed. Correct that. And so when it's completed, it's time to notify subscribers. So let's have a look at this. So here we have notify again. It's a delegate. Okay, and we have our publisher, and we're creating an event called notify. Method is time to notify. We have a method here that does some work. It just says it's work, and when the work is done, we notify the work is done. And we have this protected virtual void event on time to notify, and that's invoked then. Okay, okay, so that's not too bad. Okay, so we can consume this event. Okay, in a program. Okay. So we have a publisher, which is a new publisher. Remember, the program now is a subscriber, because this is going to subscribe to this particular publisher event. Okay, so here we have a publisher, which is a new publisher, and we're saying the time to notify is going to be this method. So we register this method with the event, and then we do the work, and when it happens, this event is called, and here's our time to notify, so the work is completed. So it's fairly straightforward and works just nicely for us. I may have a program written for you that does this. My event. Let's have a look. There's one called my event. Yeah. Okay, so it's working. Oh, I've got some, this is a different one. Okay, but essentially we have this working one. Maybe I have a more complete program that's working down here. Yeah, here's the problem. Okay, so we do some work, and yeah, that's it. We're doing the work. So it should run. So I think you could probably just copy this and run it. Let's you could copy this program and have it running if you wanted. So let's have a look and see what happens here. I have a different program running in here because I just kept overwriting them. Okay, yeah, this is a bit more complicated one, but maybe we'll save that one. But it should be fairly straightforward to see how it works. Okay. Anyway, I guess what's interesting is we're interested in passing data around, and that's what that other example are. So the event can send data to subscribers. So they're not just about notification that some event occurred. They can provide really valuable information about the event. So events should include two parameters: the source of the event and the event data. Okay. In the previous example there wasn't any data. Okay. So we didn't specifically indicate so. Okay. So C# includes some built-in delegate types called event handler and event handler t-event args. Okay, so we will use these. We don't actually have to write our event handlers called notify like we did earlier. We can just provide the delegates, especially when we want to pass data from to the handler itself. So we use the event handler delegate for all events that don't include event data, and then we include the event handler t-event args delegate for events that do include that data. Okay. So the Microsoft documentation tells us that the event args class is the base type for all event data classes. And it's also the class we use when an event doesn't have any data associated. When you create an event that's only meant to notify other classes that something happened and doesn't need to pass any data, include event args as the second parameter in the delegate. So, and you can pass this event args.empty when no data are provided, okay? And the event handler delegate includes the event args class as a parameter. Okay, so let's have a look at the example, okay? And it's the one that we were running a little bit later, okay? So now I'm creating an event handler for Booleans, okay? Time to notify. So that replaces this previous one that we had. We did some work, and we do the work, okay? And when the work is done, we it's time to notify. So here's the notify. So what we do is we invoke this method here, and that should be able to let the subscribers know. Okay. So here we are again with the subscriber, and we have a publisher that has a new publisher. Time to notify. Do the work, and when the work is done, we add this. We register this particular method here with the event. And notice this is a delegate, okay, as well, essentially, that's added to time to notify, because it should have the same signature, of course, as the other one. Okay, so that's not so bad. We can copy and paste this, I guess, and it'll work if you want. It'll be fine. But I'm interested in this last one. We want to pass some data to the event handler. Okay. Okay, so let's see how we did this with some data. Okay, so I'm interested again in running this and looking at this program here. Again, nothing has happened. We're creating an event handler that's just a Boolean event handler. We're working. We're sending some data, and this time we're doing some exception handling here. Okay, so we're able to manage the exception handling, because we might want to actually include some information if we want about what's happening and what's not happening. Again, we call this one here. Now we have some, this is the exact same again, okay? So we're just getting some information that was completed or not completed. So we have some data this time that's passed called a success, and that tells us whether the method was successful or not, okay? That's all it does. It's just, we're sending this message through to our event handler, as opposed to sending false if it wasn't true, and then we're able to send some information back again. So that's not so bad. So that's what's happening in my application. So if I go to here, yeah, I have this program running here, and I'll just go. I'm working the work failed to complete, and it gives me some information. So I was passing data around because I generated some error here. I threw some exception, and that made it work. I can uncomment this line here, and I can send the data back so that it was true, and I can be able to pass this data around. And you can have a look and see how the data has been passed back and forth, and you can uncomment some of the information as well. So I could probably do this and do this and run it again, and the work completed successfully. So I'm simulating errors and so forth, and simulating whether a piece of work completed or not, and generated an exception. Therefore, and also I'm able to point out some information and pass data around. So it's not too difficult, really. If you understand delegates, you should have no problem with this. Okay, so again, we were passing information around by creating this this variable here that allowed us to be able to a variable object. So we were passing the arguments object around that extended the event args type, and that's how we were able to get information back and forth, because we use a single variable, and it's fine. Okay, so quickly really learned about event handling with C#. As you get into it, it becomes a little bit more complex. You'll have to look at the programs yourself and work through them. They're well commented, and it should be okay. But event handling in C# is based on this observer design pattern, and that makes use of delegates, which you saw in the last one. Bit of work for you to do, but it's definitely worth working. Okay. And nice reference here as well. So try that one perhaps as well to have a look and see if you can get that going. That would be very nice. Thank you very much for watching. We'll leave it there.